Education assessment and evaluation midterm study notes prepared from teachers' shared notes. Bloom taxonomy cognitive domain 1956. MCQs number 1. Which level of Bloom taxonomy involves simple recall of facts, knowledge? The ability to understand and explain ideas is known as comprehension. Applying learned concept to new situation refers to application. Breaking down information into smaller parts to understand its structure is analysis. The stage that involves creating something new from existing ideas is synthesis. Which level of cognitive includes making value judgments about material, evaluation, translating, interpreting, and predicting are example of comprehension. Which domain requires understanding of both content and structure analysis? Producing a research proposal or creative plan falls under synthesis. Which level represents the highest cognitive process? Evaluation. Brief summary. Bloom taxonomy 1956 classified learning objectives into six major categories within the cognitive domain, from simple recall to complex judgment. Number 1, knowledge. Remembering learned facts, terms, or concepts. Number 2, comprehension. Understanding and explaining ideas or meanings. Number 3, application. Using knowledge in new or practical situations. Number 4, analysis. Breaking information into parts to explore relationships and structures. Number 5, synthesis. Combining ideas to create something new or original. Number 6, evaluation. Making judgment based on criteria and evidence. The hierarchy moves from lower order thinking skills, knowledge, comprehension, application to higher order skills, analysis, synthesis, evaluation, showing how learners progress from basic recall to critical and creative thinking. 10 MCQs on affective domain. Krathwohl 1964. Question number 1. Which is the lowest level in affective domain? Receiving. Number 2. Paying attention to a teacher's lecture show which level? Receiving. Which level involves active participation and response? Responding. Voluntarily participating in class or discussion shows responding. Attaching importance or worth to an idea or behavior is called valuing. Which stage involves developing a system of values? Organization. The stage where values guide one's consistent behavior is characterization by a value complex. When a student accepts honesty as a lifelong principle, it reflects characterization. Comparing and resolving values conflicts occur in which level? Organization. Showing satisfaction while performing a learning task indicates responding. Brief summary of affective domain. Krathwohl's affective domain 1964 deals with feeling, attitude, and value in learning, including five stages arranged from lower to higher levels of emotional involvement. Number 1, receiving, being willing to listen or pay attention. Number 2, responding, showing active participation or reaction. Number 3, valuing, attaching importance or showing commitment. Number 4, organization, developing a value system by resolving conflicts. And number 5 is characterization, living consistently according to one's values. It focuses on developing positive attitude and emotional growth along with knowledge and skills. 10 MCQs on psychomotor domain of Simpson 1972. Number 1. Which level involves using sense organ to guide movement? Perception. Number two, the readiness to take action is called set. Number three, early learning stage involving imitation and trial and error referred to guide response, guided response. Number four, when a learner performs a task with some confidence and control, it is mechanism. Number five, which level shows smooth, accurate, and automatic performance, complex, overt response. Number six, modifying learned skill to meet new needs, adaptation. Number seven, creating a new movement pattern for unique situation is organization, origination, sorry. Creating a new movement pattern for a unique situation is origination. Number 8, recognizing and selecting cues before acting represents perception. Number 9, which level includes imitation and practice, guided response. Number 10, performing motor acts with minimal energy and full control indicates complex overt response. Brief summary of Simpson's psychomotor domain 1972 describes stages of physical skills development from observing and preparing to acting skillfully and creatively. The seven levels are 1. Perception, recognizing sensory cues. Number 2. Set, readiness to act. Number 3. Guided response, imitation and practice. Number 4. Mechanism, confident and habitual performance. Number 5. Complex overt response, smooth, skilled, and automatic performance. Number 6. Adaptation, modifying skills for new situation. Number 7. Origination, creating new movement patterns creatively. In short, this domain focuses on how learners develop, refine, and create physical skills through practice and creativity. Clarifying action verb for stating specific learning outcomes. These verbs help describe observable behavior that show effective learning has occurred. Level 1, receiving. In receiving, asks, choose, describes, follows, gives, holds, identifies, locates, names, point to, selects, sits erect, replies, uses. Number 2 is responding. Answers, assists, complies, conforms, discuss, greets, helps, labels, performs, practices, presents, reads, recites, reports, selects, tells, writes. Number 3, valuing. Completes, describes, differentiates, explains, follows, forms, initiates, invites, joins, justifies, pur- proposes, reads, reports, selects, shares. Level 4, organization. Adheres, alters, arrange. Sorry, it's not organization, it's organization basically. Level 4 is organization. Adheres, alters, arranges, combines, compares, completes, defends, explains, generalizes, identifies, integrates, modifies, organize, prepares, relates, synthesize. Number 5 is characterization by value or value complex. Acts, discriminates, display, influence, listen, modifies, performs, practices, proposes, qualifies, question, revise, serves, solves, uses, verifies. 10 MCQs with correct answers. Number 1, which effective objective shows attentiveness and awareness? Receiving. Participants in class discussion belong to which level? Responding. Showing interest in the subject and helping others indicate valuing. 4. Integrating different values into a belief system shows organization. Number 5. Acting consistently according to one's values reflect characterization. The verb joins is most suitable for which affective level? Valuing. The verb identifies is usually used for which affective level? Receiving. Which of the following verbs fits the responding category? Discuss. Adheres and integrate are verbs related to organization. Serves and influences are verbs representing characterization. Brief summary. Affective domain, Krathwohl's 1964 focuses on developing attitude, values, interest, and emotions in learners. It has five hierarchical levels. 1. Receiving, paying attention and awareness. Number 2. Responding, active participation. Number 3. Valuing, attract, tracking worth or importance, attaching worth or importance. Number 4, organization, integrating values into a system. Number 5, characterization, acting consistently with one's values. Teachers use specific action verbs like participate, self, values, integrates, influence to measure these emotional and attitude, attitudinal outcomes in education. Summary of psychomotor domain table GE. The psychomotor domain in Bloom taxonomy deals with physical movement, coordination, and the use of motor skills areas. Development in the domain requires practice and is measured in terms of speed, precision, distance, and technique in execution. It involves the following stages. Perception recognizes cues for movement, for example, detecting machine sound problems. Verbs choose, detects, different, differentiate, identifies. Set. Readiness to act, show desire or to type efficiently. Verbs begins, displays, react, shows, starts. Number 3. Guided response. Early stage of learning with imitation and trial. For example, applies first aid bandage as demonstrated. Verb assembles, constructs, measures, sketches. Number 4. Mechanism. Learned responses become habitual. For example, types smoothly and legibly. Verb same as guided response. Complex overt response. Skillful performance of motor acts. Operates power saw skillfully. Verb same as guided response. Number 6. Adaptation. Skills are modified to fit new situation. Adjust tennis play. Verb adapts, alter, revise, varies. 7. Origination. Creating new movement patterns. Create a dance step or design a new dress. Verbs arrange, compasses, constructs, designs, originates. 10 MCQs from table GE psychomotor domain. The psychomotor domain mainly focuses on physical skills and coordination. 2. Which of the following is an example of the perception stage? Recognizes malfunction by sound of machine. Number 3. The set stage of the psychomotor domains refer to readiness to act or respond. Number 4. Which verb belong to the guided response category? Assembles. Number 5. Operates a power saw skillfully shows which level? Complex overt response. Number 6. Adaptation stage means modifying skills for new condition. Number 7. Which of the following verb is linked to adaptation? Alters. Number 8. Creating a dance step or composing a song represents origination. Number 9. Which verb best fit in the perception level? Identifies. Number 10. Write smoothly and legibly belong to which level? Mechanism. Summary of Table 4.2 Table of Specification DOS. A table of specification is blueprint for a test that ensures assessment items are fair, balanced, and aligned with learning objectives. It connects content areas with cognitive levels of Bloom taxonomy. Key points: purpose: it ensures that the test measures what was taught and maintains a valid balance between difference of topics and cognitive skills. Number two, content areas. For example, weather unit, air pressure 22%, air temperature 20%, humidity and precipitation 16%, wind 10%, clouds 10%, fronts 12%. Cognitive levels. Percentage distribution example: knowledge 12%, comprehension 24%, application 16%, analysis 10%, synthesis 20%, and evaluation is 12%. 4. Low level cognitive skills: knowledge, comprehension, application 52%, high level cognitive skills: analysis, synthesis, evaluation 48%. Use: teacher design tests that match the instructional objective. Each content area should include items across different Bloom's levels. Ensure validity, reliability, and fairness in testing. For example, 2% of test items should measure knowledge of air pressure, 4% should measure comprehension, etc. according to given table. 10 MCQs from Table of Specification TOS. MCQs on Table of Specification TOS. Number 1. What is the main purpose of a table of specifications TOS? To ensure a balanced test covering both content and objectives. Number 2. The table of specification is also known as test blueprint. Number 3. What two dimensions does not table of specification typically include? Content areas and cognitive levels. Which two dimensions does a table of specification typically include? Yes, these two are included in TOS: content areas and cognitive levels. Number 4. Which of the following is the benefit of using a table of specification? It increases test validity. In a TOS, which taxonomy is most often used for cognitive levels? Bloom Cognitive Taxonomy. A TOS ensures that test items are representative of what was taught. If 20% of the instruction was on air temperature, then in a TOS, 20% of test items should cover air temperature. Which of the following best describes a balanced test according to table of specification? A test that include all content areas and levels of learning. What is the first step in constructing a table of specifications? Identifying instructional objectives and the content areas. Why does a teacher use table of specification in assessment? To ensure fairness, validity, and alignment with instruction. Summary: the role of measurement and assessment in teaching. Easy wording: what is assessment in teaching? Assessment means collecting information about students' learning and performance. It is not just about giving tests. It is a systematic process that helps teachers set learning goals, monitor student progress, judge how well goals are achieved. Types of assessment: formal assessment, planned tools like tests, quizzes, assignments, projects, portfolios. And number 2 is informal assessment. Everyday classroom interaction like teachers' observation, questioning students, class discussions, students' body language or tone of voice. By type are important. Formal tests give objective data while informal observation helps teacher make quick daily decisions. 3. Importance of assessment in teaching. Assessment helps teacher to make instructional decisions such as how to group students for learning, whether students are ready for new topics, When to review lessons, identifying learning difficulties, deciding who needs special help or counseling, how well teaching methods are working. Good assessment is equal to good teaching decisions. Number 4 is difference between assessment, test and measurement. Assessment. Any method, test, project, observation to get information about student learning is called assessment. Question is like of assessment: how well does the student perform? Test: a formal set of questions or tasks given in the same way to all students is called test. Question it answers: how well does the student perform under uniform conditions? Measurement: giving numbers or scores to performance like marks or grades. Question it answers like how much does the student know? Examples: if a student takes a math test and scores 35 over 40, the test is the tool. The measurement is the score 35 and the assessment is the teacher's overall judgment. For example, excellent progress in problem solving. Number 5 key points. Assessment is broader than test or measurement. Measurement is equal to numbers, assessment is equal to value plus value judgment plus measurement observation. Teacher use both formal tools, test and informal tools, observations. Effective assessment improves teaching quality and student learning. In short, assessment is equal to measuring plus observing plus judging student performance to improve learning. General principles of assessment. Assessment means checking how much a student has learned and developed. It helps teacher understand student progress and make educational decisions. To make assessment useful and fair, teachers should follow these main principles. Be clear about what to assess. Before assessing, teacher must decide exactly what they want to check: knowledge, skill, or attitudes. For example, if the goal is to see if students understand historical documents, the teacher must define which document, what idea, and what context. So, first set clear learning goals, then choose suitable tests or methods. Number 2 is choose the right assessment method. The tool used must fit what is being measured. For example, if the goal is to see how well students can write or a multiple choice test won't work. Instead, an essay or written task is better. Accuracy and convenience are good, but relevance is more important. Choose the right assessment method. Number 3 is use different types of assessment. One single test cannot measure everything. Teachers should use a variety of methods: multiple choice and short answers, check knowledge and understanding; essay and project, check thinking and writing skills; observations, check performance or behavior; self reports, check interest or attitude. A complete picture of a student need all these types together. Number 4 is know the limitation of assessment. No test is perfect, all have some kind of error. Teacher must be aware of these limits. Sampling error. A test includes only a small number of questions from logic topics, so it may not show the full picture. Chance error. Guessing, human scoring mistakes or inconsistent answers can affect results, so small score difference between students may not be meaningful. Wrong interpretation. Sometimes results are misunderstood. For example, an aptitude test measures reasoning skills, not total intelligence or personal worth. Always know what a test truly measures. Understand these limits helps use assessment more carefully and effectively. Number 5, assessment is a tool, not a goal. Assessment is not for collecting marks only, it for making decisions and improving teaching and learning. It should have a clear purpose. Collecting data without using it is a waste of time. When teachers and students understand why an assessment is done, they take it more seriously. Purpose: assessment gives useful information to improve teaching methods, guide learning, and make educational decisions. Summary of key points, principles. These are the four principles. Number one, specify what to assess, be clear about learning goals. Number two, select relevant methods, choose the right type of test. Number three, use multiple tools, mixed test, projects, and observations. Number four, no limitations. No test is perfect, be cautious. Number five, use assessment for purpose. Don't collect data for no reason, use it to improve learning. Assessment and instruction process. The main goal of teaching is to help students achieve learning objectives, changing in their thinking, intellectual, feeling, emotional, and actions, physical. Assessment is not separate from teaching, it is a part of the teaching learning process. It helps teacher to see whether students are learning as expected and how to improve teaching. Steps in the instructional process. Number one, identifying instructional goals. First, a teacher decide what students should learn, knowledge, skill, attitude, or behaviors. These goals guide both teaching and assessment. For example, if a student should understand photosynthesis, the teacher must define what understanding means and how it will be measured. Number two, pre-assessing learners' need. Before teaching starts, teacher check what student already know. This helps to find out who is ready and who needs extra help. For example, a short quiz before new topic can show student current understanding. Pre-assessing learning learners need. Number three, providing relevant instruction. Teaching should match learning goals and student needs. During lessons, teacher use formative assessment like quizzes, class questions, and observation to monitor progress. This allows teacher to make judgments and help struggling students. For example, in a group work, if one student does all the talking, the teacher can change the activity to involve everyone. Number four, assessing intended learning outcomes. At the end of a teaching, summative assessment like tests or projects checks how much student achieved the learning goals. The test should match what was taught and what was intended to be learned. Number five, using the results. Assessment results should not only be for giving marks, they should help improve learning. Results can be used to show student what they are show students what they have achieved, give short-term goals, provide feedback, identify learning problems, plan future learning. They also helps teacher improve instructional methods and materials, adjust goals if needed, reports progress to parents through marks reports or portfolios, make school level decisions and curriculum improvement. Summary of the instructional process. These are the five steps. Number one, identify goals, decide what student should learn. Number two, pre assess, check student prior knowledge. Number three, teach and monitor, teach and assess during lessons. Number four, assess outcomes, test what was learned. Number five, use results, improve learning, teaching, and reports progress. Number one, maximum performance versus typical performance. These assessments check what a person can do at their best. Used to measure ability or achievement when students try their hardest. For example, aptitude tests predict future success and achievement tests measure past learning. For example, a math test to check how much a student has learned in the course. Typical performance. These assessments check what a person usually does in normal situations, focuses on interest, attitude, behavior, or personality. For example, questionnaires, interviews, observation, rating scales, and self reports. For example, a teacher observing how cooperative a student is during group work. Portfolios can be used for both to show best work, maximum, or typical progress, typical. 2. Fixed choice test versus complex performance assessment. Fixed choice test. It is also selected response test, include multiple choice true false or matching questions. Easy to score, quick, reliable, and cost effective, measure factual knowledge and basic understanding. Weakness often fail to measure higher order thinking or problem solving. Complex performance assessment, also called performance or authentic assessment. Student performs real tasks or solve real life problems. For example, essays, projects, experiments, presentations, or artwork show how students apply knowledge in meaningful situations. Time consuming and need trained scoring but show deeper learning. Both types are useful. Teachers often combine them for a complete picture. Placement, formative, diagnostic, and summative assessment. Types. We have four types plus placement assessment. When used before instruction. The purpose of placement assessment is to check what students already know. A pre-test before a new unit is the example of placement test. Second one is formative assessment. It is used during instruction. The purpose of formative assessment is to monitor progress and give feedback. And what is the example of formative assessment is short quizzes or class questions. Number 3 is diagnostic assessment. It used when problems continue to find causes of learning difficulties. Example of diagnostic assessment is special reading or math tests. Number 4 is summative assessment. It used after instruction to measure final achievement. Summative assessment example is final exam or project at end of term. Analogy: placement is to check up before treatment. Formative: progress check, diagnostic, finding cause of a problem. Summative: final report. 4. Norm referenced versus criterion referenced measurement. Compares a student score with other student scores. Shows rank or percentile, for example, better than 80% of students. Used for comparing performance across groups. Example: standardized national test. Criterion referenced. Compares the student score to a fixed standard or objective. Shows what the student can do, not how they compare with others. For example, student can multiply two-digit numbers or achieved proficiency levels used in standard-based education. Difference: norm referenced comparison with others, criterion referenced comparison with learning goals. Summary table: nature of measurement, types of assessment, maximum versus typical performance. Main purpose is to what student can do versus what they usually do. Test format: fixed choice versus complex performance. Main purpose is simple objective questions versus real world tasks. Function in teaching: placement, formative, diagnostic, summative. Placement is before, formatting is during, diagnosing in like finding the errors, and summative is after instruction. Interpretation of results: norm referenced versus criterion referenced. Compares with others in norm referenced versus set standard in criterion referenced. Norm referenced assessment (NRT) meaning it compares a student performance with other students' performance in a grown groups. The purpose is to show rank or relative standing, who performed better or worse. Focus on comparison among individuals. For example, a standardized test where results show you scored better than 75% of students. Where it use, it is helpful for selection, grading, and grouping students. Test design. Items of average difficulty are included so scores spread widely and students can be compared. Now the second one is criterion referenced assessment CRT. It compares the student performance with a fixed standard or learning objectives, not with others. The purpose of criterion referenced assessment is to find out what students know or can do. It focuses on individual mastery of specific learning tasks. For example, a math test where the goal is student can correctly multiply two-digit numbers. It used to helpful for planning, instruction, and checking mastery. Test design. In criterion reference assessment, items are directly related to the learning outcomes. No attempt to make some items difficult or easy just for comparison. Key difference. Main purpose norm reference test versus criterion reference test. Main purpose in norm reference test compare student with each other and in CRT measure student mastery of content. Interpretation. In NRT rank percentile relative position. In CRT score against fixed standard. Focus. In NRT discrimination among students. In CRT description of what student can do. Items difficulty. NRT average difficulty for score spread. CRT matches the learning outcomes. Use NRT selection grouping grading, while the using of CRT is feedback teaching improvement. Example NRT SAT national test, and the CRT example is unit test skill mastery test. NRT who is the best? CRT who has learned what? Continuum concept. NRT and CRT are not totally opposite. They are two ends of a continuum. Some modern tests now combine both types, giving comparison with others and description of skill mastered at the same time. Other assessment categories. Nature of assessment type maximum performance. The purpose of maximum performance is to measure what a person can do at best. For example, achievement attitude aptitude tests. Typical performance. It usually measure what a person usually does. Example is personality interest attitude test. Now the next category is format of assessment. Fixed choice, selected response. The purpose of these are to pick student pick the correct option. For example, MCQs true false matching. And the next one is complex performance. Student perform or create something, for example, essay, project, presentation. Now the last category is next category is use in teaching, placement. Placement is to check prior knowledge before instruction, pre-test, formative, check progress during learning period, quizzes, observation, diagnostic, find causes of learning problems, diagnostic learning test is the example. Summative, to check achievement at end, like final exams. Method of results interpretation, norm referenced, compares with others, national test, criterion referenced, compared with learning goals or standard, skill mastery test. And the next category is other terms, informal versus standardized, teacher made versus official test, class quiz versus board exam, individual versus group, one student versus many students, oral test versus written test, objective versus subjective, Scoring has one right answer versus depend on judgment. MCQs versus essay. Speed versus power. Measure quickness versus depth. Timed versus untimed test. In short, norm referenced compares student with each others while criterion reference check what student can do actually. Both helps teacher grading instruction and feedback assessment can be before placement during formative and diagnostic is to diagnose or after learning is summative. Now the next is meaning of validity. Validity means how appropriate, accurate and fair the interpretation and the use of assessment results are. In simple words, validity tells us whether the test really measures what is supposed to measure. For example, a math test should measure math skills, not reading ability. If a test give unfair results for some students like girls, monitors, or language learners, it's not valid. So validity is equal to correctness plus fairness in the use of results. Importance of validity. When we use a test, we should ask, are the results meaningful and useful for our purpose? Are the consequences of using this test fair and positive? For example, if a test makes teachers teach only in in what in and ignore other important content, that's a negative consequences. It reduces validity. Now the next topic is validity versus reliability. Validity meaning is to consistency of result. Sorry, it's a reliability. Validity is accuracy and fairness of interpretation, and the reliability is consistency of results. In reliability, a student score it is the example of reliability. A student score 80% again and again on retesting. And the example of validity is the test really measures the intended skill. Key point of reliability is consistent but not always correct. And the key point of validity is can't be valid without reliability. Reliability is needed for validity, but reliability alone doesn't guarantee validity. You can be consistently wrong. Example. Reliable, this is a target analogy, reliable and valid. All shots hit the bullseye, correct and consistent. Reliable but invalid. All shots are close together but off target, consistent but wrong. And the last one is unreliable and invalid. Shots are scattered everywhere, neither consistent nor corrected. Usability. Usability means how practical and easy an assessment is to use. A good test should be time saving and cost effective, easy to administer, and score, understandable for teachers and students. Usability is about practicality, not about validity or reliability. Number 5 key points about validity. Validity is about interpretation and use of results, not the test itself. It is a matter of degree, high, medium, low, not simply valid or invalid. It is a specific to each purpose. One test isn't valid for every use. For example, a math test may be valid for computational skill but not for predicting art ability. Validity is unitary concept. All evidence types works together to judge it. It involves evaluation and evidence. We need proof that interpretations are fair and accurate. Number 6 is four major consideration in validity. Number 1, content validity. It compares test questions with course, content or learning objectives. Simple meaning is that Do the question represent what was taught? Number two is construct validity. It focuses to analyze how students think and what skill the test measures. In simple meaning, does the test really measures the skill or concept it claims to? Number three is criterion related validity. It focuses on compare results with another measure now or in the future. In simple meaning, does the test predict or match performance on another test or activity? Number four is consequential validity. It focuses on study the effects of a test use on teachers and student. In simple meaning, the consequential validity is does the test use have good or harmful effect like motivation or stress? Best validity. Best validity when all four considerations are balanced, but in classrooms, teacher often focus mostly on content validity. Simple summary. Validity meaning accuracy and fairness of interpretation. Question it answer like does it measure what it should be? Reliability, consistency of the results. Questions like are the results stable and repeatable? Number three, usability, meaning practicality and convenience. Questions like is it easy to use and understand? In short, a good assessment should be valid, accurate and fair, reliable, consistent and usable, practical. Content considerations. Validity based on content. Content consideration deals with how well the questions or tasks in test represent the total learning content or objectives that were taught. In short, the test should include a fair and representative sample of whole syllabus or learning goals. For example, simple story. Suppose a spelling list has 200 words, but we can't test all them. So we select 20 words to represent the whole list. If student spells 80% correctly, we assume she can probably spell 80% of all 200 words. This assumption is valid only if the 20 selected words are fairly and representing sample of the 200. If selection is biased or unbalanced, for example, all easy words, the result will not truly represent the student's ability. Key idea. Content validity is equal to how adequately a test sample the content domain, the whole area of a learning or skills. Steps of content-based test development. To make a test valid by content, teachers should 1. Define the content domain. What topic or skill student must know based on curriculum or learning objectives. Number 2. Decide importance priorities. Which topic or skill are more important? Number 3. Select representative samples. Choose test items fairly from all areas. Number 4. Construct the test according to this plan so that every important area is included. If all four steps in harmony, the test will have good content validity. Face validity versus content validity. Face validity. The test look appropriate and relevant to the taker. For example, a math test for carpenters use the word board instead of string. Content validity. The test actually measures the correct content. For example, the math test include all key skills that were taught. Face validity only concerns appearance. Content validity concerns actual content accuracy and is much more important. TOS, table of specification. A table of specification is helps ensuring content validity. It connects content areas, topics with instructional objectives like skills, knowledge, comprehension, application, etc. This is the table of specification. Content area is on the left side, and there is a column behind. Under the content area is the chapters, I think, and on the right side is the line of cognitive domain stages: knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. And the percentage under that, how much percentage of the question that will be asked from particular chapter. This ensures that tests include the right balance of all content areas like air, wind, cloud, etc. All levels of thinking like knowledge, comprehension, application. When the test follows a plan, it's more likely to measure what was taught and what is important. Content considerations is content considerations in test selection. When choosing a published test from a company, we must check: is it aligned with our curriculum and standards? Does it cover all key objectives we teach? Is it balanced? No topic overemphasized or ignored. A test may be valid for one school but invalid for another depending on how well it matches their teaching. In short, content validity is equal to how well test items represent the learning goals, topics, and objectives that were taught. Construct consideration. A construct mean mental ability or quality. We want to measure something we can't see directly. Reading comprehension, problem solving ability, mathematical reasoning, intelligence, or creativity. Construct validity checks whether the test really measures that invisible ability and not something else. For example, if a math reasoning test requires a lot of English reading, student weak in English may score low, not because of weak math skills but because of reading problems. This lowers construct validity because of the result is affected by an irrelevant factor. Two common threats or two common threats to construct validity. Threat 1: construct under construct underrepresentation, meaning the test don't cover all important parts of the skill. For example, a geography test include only political topics, not social or cultural ones. And the second threat is construct irrelevant variance. The test includes other unrelated factors. For example, a science test that requires too much reading affecting English learners. How to check construct validity? Measurement experts collect evidence to prove the test measures what it claims. Types of evidence. Compares Compare test tasks with the skill domain. Purpose: does it represent the right ability? Ask student to think aloud while solving. Are they using the expected mental process? Compare results with similar tests. Do they correlate properly? Compare score of experted and non-experts. Compare score of experts and non-experts. Do experts score higher as expected? Correlate with related measures like grades. Do they show consistent patterns? Check correlation with unrelated tests to ensure the test is not measuring something else like reading in a math test. In simple word, construct validity means test truly measures the intended mental skills or ability, not other things like reading speed, motivation, or anxiety. What reduces construct validity? Here, the thing that reduces the construct validity is: number one, poorly written items or unclear wording. Number two, unequal opportunity to learn content. Number three, test anxiety or low motivation. Number four, language barriers. Number five, questions that allow memorization instead of real understanding. Summary of these: content validity is focus on course content objectives. Main question like does the test represent what was taught? For example, spelling test sampling 20 over 200 words. Construct validity focus on mental ability or trait. Main question in construct validity is does the test truly measure that ability? For example, math test measuring reasoning, not reading. Face validity, surface appearance. Does the test look suitable? Using word familiar to carpenters. In short, content validity related to what is tested, construct validity related to what ability is measured, face validity is related to how it looks to test takers, construct validation meaning in easy word what is means. Construct validation means checking whether a test truly measures the intended ability, skill, or trait construct and not something else. For example, if science test meant to measure scientific reasoning, it should not mainly test reading skill or memorization. So construct validation makes sure test results are meaningful and correctly show what we want to measure. Method used in construct validation. Construct validation depends on collecting different types of evidence. Here are the main methods explained in a simple way. Defining the domain or tasks to be measured. Clearly define what the test will measure. The meaning of the construct like creativity, reasoning, comprehension must be clear. All test items should relate to the construct. If only one construct is measured, the items should work together and be related. For example, if you are measuring reading comprehension, don't include questions that test spelling or grammar. Number two, analyzing the response process. Observe how students think and respond while answering questions. One way is to think aloud method where students explain how they answer. This helps confirm whether question makes student use the intended mental process. For example, in science lab test, if goal is to check conceptual understanding, but students are only graded on neat record keeping, the test is not valid for its real purpose. Number three, comparing the performance of known group. If two groups different in a skill, their test scores should reflect that. For example, trained students should score higher than untrained students. Emotionally adjusted students should score differently from maladjusted ones. If these differences appear as expected, it's supposed the test construct validity. Number four, comparing scores before and after program. Test students before and after instruction or training. If the test measures the intended skills, score should improve after proper teaching. If anxiety reducing program is given and score improve, this supports the test validity. For example, after reading course reading, test score should go up not because student guessed better but because they actually learned. Number 5, correlating scores with other measures. Compare the test results with other similar and different tests. Type of comparison: with similar test, expected result, high correlation, they measure the same thing. With different test, low correlation, they measure different things. Example: a math reading reasoning test should have high correlation with another math test. It should have low correlation with a music test. Also, scholastic if a scholastic aptitude test correlate well with school grades, science achievement, chemistry performance, this give additional support for construct validity. Main goal to understand why score different among students and to ensure those differences come from the intended skill or ability, not from other factors like language, anxiety, or bias. In simple word, construct validation is about defining what to measure clearly, ensuring test items are really measured that, checking the results against other evidence, and proving the test is meaningful, fair, and accurate.
Assessment criterion relationships. Validity based on criteria. What it means. Criterion related validity shows how well test scores relate to another measure's criterion that represents performance. The criterion can be a student future performance prediction or their current performance present ability. Two main types difference between of the two: predictive and concurrent. Predictive is time passes between test and criterion. Purpose is to predict future success. Concurrent, both measured at the same time. Purpose is to estimate current performance. Example, Mr. Tanka's case. Mr. Tanka wanted to see if scholastic aptitude test scores predict success in mathematics. Steps he followed: used number 1, he used aptitude test score predictor. Number 2, compared them with student end of year math exam score criterion. 3, checked if student with high aptitude scores also had high math scores. Number 4, used correlation to measure how closely the two sets of scores were related. Correlation and scatter plot. Correlation shows the degree of relationship between two sets of scores. It gives a number called correlation coefficient between -1 and +1. +1 is equal to perfect positive relationship, 0 is equal to no relationship, and -1 is equal to perfect negative relationship. For example, if aptitude and math exam scores have high positive correlation, it means the test is a good predictor of math success. Scatter plot is graph showing how one score relate to another visually. It helps teacher to see patterns, for example, high aptitude, high achievement. In short, criterion related validation shows how well test results match real performance, either now or in the future. Final summary. Content validity purpose is to does the test cover the right content? Evidence method compare with curriculum, for example, spanning test sample 220 words from 200 words. Construct validity does test measure intended ability? Evident method is to think aloud, group comparison, correlation with similar test. For example, math reasoning test measuring reasoning only. Criterion validity. The purpose is does the test predict or reflect real performance? Evidence method compare test and criterion scores. For example, aptitude test predicting math exam results. Understanding scatter plot and correlation. What is what a scatter plot shows? A scatter plot is a graph that shows how two sets of scores relate to each other. Each dot represents one student's two scores. Example: one score x-axis aptitude test in fall, second score y-axis mathematics exam in spring. Mr. Tanka's class example: Mr. Tanka's test 20 students fall aptitude spring math exam. Sandra fall aptitude high spring math exam high. John fall aptitude low spring math exam low. Carlos fall aptitude test low spring math exam high. What the scatter plot shows: general pattern: students with high aptitude test scores also scored high on the math exam. Students with low aptitude score also scored low on the math exam. Exceptions exist. Carlos scored low on aptitude but high in the math exam, showing the relationship is not perfect. So the scatter plot helps us to see the relationship and also shows Outliers, exceptions. Correlation coefficient R is equal to 0.58. What is? A correlation coefficient symbol R is a number that shows how strongly two things are related. It ranges between -1.00 and +1.00. R value positive 1.0 perfect positive relationship both go up together, and 0.00 means no relationship. If the R value is negative 1.0, it means perfect negative relationship. One goes up and the other goes down. Mr. Tanka's result, his correlation coefficient is equal to R is equal to 0.58. This means the relationship is positive, higher aptitude, higher math scores, but is not perfect. There is still variation. So 0.858 shows a moderate positive relationship between two sets of scores. Validity coefficient, the correlation between a test and a criterion, another performance measure, is called a validity coefficient. In Mr. Tanka's case, test, predictor, fall aptitude test, criterion, outcome, supreme math exam, validity coefficient 0.58. This means the aptitude test can partially predict future math success. But remember, a validity coefficient alone does not prove full validity. Content construct and other factors must also be checked. Comparing correlation figure 4.6. Correlation 1.0 perfect positive, every high predictor score, high criterion score. Scatter plot look, all dots in straight diagonal line. 0.00 no relationship, scores are random, dots scattered everywhere. 0.58 moderate positive, general trend but not exact, dots roughly diagonal but spread out. So in Mr. Tanka's case, R is equal to 0.58, we can predict but not perfectly. Comparing validity coefficients. A correlation validity coefficient is good or bad only when compared to others. For example, if Mr. Tanka's test R is equal to 0.58 gives better prediction than other test R is equal to 0.40 or 0.30, then it is useful. Even a small coefficient can be valuable if it predicts better than guessing. Concurrent concurrent present concurrent validation example. Sometimes we prepare a test with another current measure, not future one. For example, Mr. Valencia, biology teacher, created study skills test and compared its results with her observation ratings done at the same time. Correlation is equal to R is equal to 0.75. This means the result and her observation agrees well. Her study skill test is valid for estimating current study ability. Factors affecting correlation size. Factors. Similarity of what is measured. More similar, higher correlation. Large range of scores. Bigger spread, high correlation. Stable scores, consistent score, high correlation, short time between measures, shorter gap, high correlation. If any of these decrease, less similar, smaller spread, unstable or long time gap, the correlation becomes smaller. So a low correlation might happen due to these reasons, not always because the test is bad. Next is expectancy table. What is expectancy table? An expectancy table or grid shows how likely student with certain test score will perform in the future. It is made by dividing test and criterion scores into categories. For example, above average, average, below average. Mr. Tanka's example, student with high aptitude test scores
all scored above average in spring math test. Students with low aptitude test scores mostly scored below average in spring math test. This shows the test is useful for prediction. Simple meaning, if students score high on the aptitude test, they are likely to do well later. If student scores low, they are less likely to perform high. This helps teacher predict and plan support. Overall summary, scatter plot, meaning it's a visual graph showing relationship. For example, dots showing aptitude versus math scores. Correlation coefficient R, meaning it's a number showing strength of a relationship. R is equal to 0.58, moderate positive correlation. Validity coefficient, it means correlation between test and criterion. For example, aptitude test versus math test. Predictive validity, it means test predict future success. For example, fall aptitude test to spring exam. Concurrent validity, it means a test compares to current performance. Study skills test versus observation. Factors affecting coefficient. Similarity score separate time gap stability. For example, closer, higher. Expectancy table, meaning the table that predict performance levels. Table predicting performance levels is called expectancy table. For example, high aptitude, high future performance. The criterion problem. What is criterion? A criterion is measure of success, something we use to check if our test is valid. It tells us how well test predicts or matches real performance. For example, Mr. Tankas used the departmental math exam as the criterion to check if his aptitude test could predict student success. Mr. Mrs. Valencia used her ratings of students' study skills as the criterion to check her study skills test. The problem? The main problem is it is hard to find a perfect criterion that truly measures all aspects of success. Example 1, Mr. Tanka's problem, his math exam did not measure all important learning outcomes. It ignored problem solving, mathematical reasoning, understanding of graph and charts, attitude towards mathematics. So even though the exam was useful, it was not complete measure of success in mathematics. Example 2 is Mrs. Valencia's problem. Her rating of study skills were subjective, based on her opinion. Some students pretend to study better when observed, others were overrated because of good classroom grades. So her criterion also had bias and limited accuracy. The main idea, there is no perfect criterion in education. Most are incomplete, don't measure all skills, unstable, change easily, less reliable than test itself. That's why other types of validity like content validity, what's in the test, and construct validity, what the test is meant to measure, are also very important when judging a test. Consideration of consequences. What it means. The famous researcher Misick 19 from 1989 to 1994 said, when we judge whether a test is valid, we must also look its consequences, both good and bad effects. In other words, we must ask, does the test help student learn? Does it have negative side effects? Positive and negative effects. Intended consequences. Helps teacher improve instruction, motivates student to study harder, measures what is really important in learning. Unintended consequences. It means negative. Narrowing of curriculum. Teachers teaching only what on the test. Teaching test items instead of real skills. Reducing creative and critical thinking. Stress, dropouts, or unfair retention decision. Examples: multiple choice test. If school use the same test every year, teachers may teach only what appears on the test, ignore important learning areas not covered, focus on memorization instead of problem solving. This makes scores go up but real learning goes down. Even if even if a different test form is used each year, problems can continue if the test does not match the curriculum learning goals. Example: performance based assessment. Even performance based assessment like project portfolios or practical tasks can have consequences. Teachers must consider both the intended benefits, more authentic real world learning, the unintended drawbacks, too time consuming subjective grading. So both standardized and performance based assessment need to be checked for consequences, especially when high stakes important results are involved. High stakes assessment consequences. When test decides big outcomes like promotion or graduation, consequences become very important. Example: using test for grade retention. If a student fails a test and it kept in the same grade, teacher should ask, does retention actually help the student learn better, or does it cause negative effects like low confidence or dropout? To know this, school can compare students who barely failed and were retained with students who barely passed and were promoted. If retained students do worse in the long term, the policy is not valid because it has negative consequences. Teachers' role in considering consequences. Teachers are in the best position to think about consequences because they know their learning objectives, they understand what student experienced in the class, they can observe and talk to students during assessment. Teachers should ask these questions. 1. Do the test tasks match important learning goals? Example: if problem solving is the goal, test it directly, not just memorization. What you test is what you get reminds us that test should reflect key objective. Number 2, does the test motivate student to study harder? Students perform better when they know what to expect, how score will be used, and that the test is fair. Does the test make student focus too narrowly? For example, testing only one type of math problem ignores other important thinking skills. Number 4, does the test encourage creativity and exploration? Assessment should not be so rigid that they discourage new ideas and expression. Simple summary table. Criterion: standard used to judge success, for example, departmental exam or teaching rating. Criterion problem. The meaning of the criterion problem is no perfect criterion exists. Validity: consequences, mean effects, good or bad, of test use. Positive effects: improve learning and motivation. Negative effects: narrow curriculum, test teaching. High stakes effects: decision like promotion. Teacher's role: mean evaluate effects logically. Factors influencing validity. And what is the meaning of it? Validity means that assessment, for example, test, truly measures what it's supposed to measure. However, many small or big things can affect the validity of test results. Factors in the test or assessment itself. Sometimes the test itself has problems that reduce validity. Here are the main ones. Number 1, unclear directions. If the test instructions are confusing or not clear, student may not understand what to do. This affects their performance and reduce validity. Number two, difficult vocabulary or sentences. If the words or sentences are too hard to read, the test may end up checking reading ability instead of the actual subject, for example, science or math. Ambiguous statements. If a question can be understood in more than one way, student may get confused. This can make good students score poorly. Inadequate time limits. If there is not enough time to complete the test, it measures speed instead of knowledge. Most tests should measure understanding, not how fast you write. Overemphasis on easy topics. Sometimes tests focus only on facts because they are easy to ask, ignoring higher order thinking skills like problem solving or reasoning. Wrong type of questions. If teacher want to check understanding but uses only factual questions, the result won't show real understanding. Poorly constructed questions. Some questions may accidentally give hints or clues to the answer. This makes the test less valid. Too few questions. If a test is too short, it does not give a fair sample of all topics, so it can't represent the full picture of learning. Bad arrangement of questions. If difficult questions are placed first, student may get tired or lose confidence. Easier to harder order keeps motivation high. Answer patterns. If the answers if the answer key follows a pattern like A B C D repeatedly, student can guess answer more easily, lowering validity. Functioning of tasks and teaching methods. Sometimes question looks good, but it doesn't really test what it should because of how it was taught. For example, if student already practiced the same problem in the class and then the test only checks memory, not reasoning. To check real understanding, questions should test thinking, not memorization. Factors in test administration and scoring. Even good test can become invalid if it is not handled properly. Giving different students unfair help, allowing cheating, not following time limits, scoring carelessly or unfairly, all these reduce the validity of results. Even classroom conditions like noise, stress, or bad lighting can affect students and lower validity. Factors in student responses. Sometimes problem comes from student side, emotional stress or fear of test, lack of motivation or interest, health issues. These factors can make student perform differently than usual, affecting the test validity. Nature of the group and the criterion. A test may be valid for one group but not for another. For example, a 7th grade math test will not be valid for 3rd graders. A reading heavy science test may favor students who read better, not those who actually know science. Also, when comparing test results to another measure like grades, the relationship depends on how similar the two things measure the same skill, how wide the range of scores is, how stable the scores are over time, how long the time gap is between the two tests. If two tests measure different skills or the group characteristics are different, the correlation relationship will be smaller. Teachers' role in ensuring validity. Teachers are the main users of test, so they must check if the test truly represent what was taught. See if questions make students show real understanding, not memorized facts. Observe how the test affects student learning and motivation.
Review relationships between test results and the other student achievements. Summary in simple points: validity means correctness of interpretations of test results. It is not about the test only, it is about how results are used. Validity has degrees. Some results are more valid than others. Four major areas helps ensure validity: content. Does the test cover the right topics? Construct. Does it measure the right skill or ability? Criterion. Does it relate to the real performance or future success? Consequences. What are the effects, positive or negative, of using the test? Teachers should always try to make test fair, clear, and focused on students actually learned. If a teacher say a test has high validity, you should ask, what does it measure exactly? What kind of evidence supports that claim? Content, construct, or criterion? What it tried with real students? Was it tried with real students? Were test items related to what was taught? These questions check whether the test really measures what it's supposed to. Science teacher made assessment without consulting others. If only one teacher prepares the test, it may not match with what others taught. This reduces content validity because the test may not represent all parts of the biology course fairly. Validity in social studies versus math problem solving. Social studies test. Norm referenced measure general knowledge, harder to judge exact validity. Math problem solving test. Easier to compare with learning goals. A table of specification TOS is most useful for math because it ensures coverage of skills and topics taught. 4. Steps to check the validity of published test. Check content. Compare test items with your course topics. Number 2, check construct. Make sure it measures the right skills. For example, reasoning, not memory. Number 3, compare with student results. See if test scores match real performance in class. Number 4, collect feedback. Ask students, teachers if the test fits the subject level. Review manual. Read test manual for validity studies. Each step ensures the test truly measures what you teach. Evidence for construct validity. Reading comprehension. Compare test with reading levels or expert judgment. Math reasoning. See if high scores also solve new math problem well. Creativity. Compare test with creative achievements or expert ratings. Final exam validity problems. Construct under representation. If exam cover only easy topics or definitions, it misses important thinking skills. Reduce reduces validity. Construct irrelevant factors. If success depend on writing speed, memory, or neatness, not understanding, it lowers validity. Validity coefficient. It is numerical value from 0 to 1, showing how strong the link is between test scores and what it should measure. Factors affecting its size: poor test design, unreliable scoring, small or biased sample, time gap between test and criterion, low similarity between test and real performance. Expectancy table. A table that shows how well test scores predict real outcomes like success in future studies. Advantage: easier to read and interpret than single number validity coefficient. Teachers can see expected success levels clearly. Evaluating consequences of a graduation test. Steps: 1. See how it affects student motivation and teaching methods. 2. Check dropout rates or failure trends. 3. Review fairness for all groups. 4. Study long-term effects on learning quality. Purpose is to ensure the test bring positive outcome and doesn't harm students. Analyze your own math assessments. Number 1, predict possible effects, motivation, anxiety, etc. 2, collect student with teacher feedback. 3. Compare scores over time. 4. See if tests promote real world math use. 5. Adjust test design if needed to improve fairness and usefulness. 11. Comparing validity info in test manuals. Achievement test manuals focus on course content and learning outcomes. Aptitude test manuals focus on predicting future performance like college success. Their validity information differs because their purpose are different. Comparing with standards. The standard for educational and psychological testing say that every test manual should include validity evidence, content, construct or criterion, sample group description, testing conditions, reliability data. Compare your test manual. If it lacks these, it's incomplete. Factors that lower validity: poorly written or unclear questions, wrong content coverage, unfair time limits, cheating or inconsistent scoring, emotional or physical issues in students, unreliable teaching or unclear learning objectives, irrelevant difficulty like language problem in math test. In short, validity depends on clear objective, fair content coverage, good testing conditions, and correct use of scores. So, this is it. Thank you so much for watching.